Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Brett and my channel is TN Artist in case you happen to stumble across this. So I want to thank you for being here. What I do on my channel here is I try to make digital painting accessible for really anyone that's wanting to try and learn how to do it. And I use a couple different softwares to do so, ranging from Rebelle 5 that I'm using here to a couple others that you'll see on my channel. The techniques I'm going to show you here, you could use just about all of them with any program. There are some very specific things to Rebelle 5 that we might tap into and that I really like, and so I want to show you how to do that. But what we're going to do today is we're going to do a landscape. A lot of the different things you'll see on my channel are landscapes. One of the things that got me into painting was watching like Bob Ross and all that stuff when I was growing up. So I kind of like sharing the process of using traditional techniques with digital software, so that way you can go back and forth from both if you want to, or if you want to just transition like I did over to digital primarily, so that way you don't have to drag out all the oils and watercolors and all that stuff, so that way you can do it. So what I have here is, this is Rebelle 5 Pro, and I have an 8" by 10" canvas, so an 8x10, which is roughly an A4 for other countries, somewhere around there. And I have my resolution set at just 100 right now for a couple reasons. One, my recording software doesn't play well with others. It's a good software, but it just doesn't play well with others for when I'm doing this kind of stuff. So I set it at 100 dpi. But the nice thing about using Rebelle 5 is that it has the nanopixel export, and which is right here. So when I want to export this, I can export it up to 4 times what it is, which would, be plenty big enough for what I'm wanting to do if I want to sell prints of it or anything. And then I can adjust the size down and get nice, clean, crisp prints from it. So it works really well. Anyway, but the main thing is just that this is going to allow me to be able to paint and not have as much lag time with the recording software. So we're going to be doing kind of a mountain sunrise kind of painting. I have the palette over here. If you are a patron, you'll have this on that page to be able to use. I'm going to use primarily the brushes that came with Rebelle, so that way you can follow along and do that. I may dive into some stencils that I have here that are available on Gumroad, and they can be used and imported to use here. So I use these because these help save time and give you some nice textures that you can build from quickly. So that's the main reason I tend to use them. But don't have to. You can, especially the way Rebelle is set up to be very realistic in its painting, is you can do a lot of this stuff without the stencils. But I like using them, like I said, because it saves me time. So, and again, those are available on Gumroad, and there are discounts for my patrons as well. So anyway, having said all of that, why don't we get started with it? So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit just so I can kind of go off the canvas while I'm painting. And I think what I want to do is I want to start with a nice gradation of paint. So I'm going to go to this little bit darker blue here. Still kind of a light blue, but a dark one. Then I'm going to go to my fill bucket, which is right here. And I'm going to have it wet the layer, just in case I want to use that to interact with some of the functionality of some of the other brushes for the wet media brushes. I'm going to go to my airbrush, and we're going to come over here to this lighter blue. And what I want to do here is I'm going to press Shift, and that's going to give me that little crosshairs. You see it right there. Now if I click and then come across, it gives me the other crosshair, which it draws a line to. So I want to draw it so it's fairly straight, and then press again. So now I have these two here, and I'm holding Shift down at the same time. So now when I paint, like for example, even if I go up and down, I'm going to paint along that line. Okay? So that gives me that nice straight line. I'm going to undo that because that was a little darker, so Control Z. Then I'm going to put my Shift line, click, click, and now I've just softly come across and build this up a little bit, like so. Let off the Shift so I can blend it up a little and blend it down a little, like so. So that's going to give me, you know, a nice little gradation. Okay. And I'm using the bracket keys, left and right. Left to make it smaller, right to make the brush bigger. And all I'm doing now is I'm just circling with my pen to start laying in some ideas of where some distant clouds might be living, because the sky is going to be very subtle, and most of it, to be honest, is probably going to be covered up. Okay, like so. All right, so I know that I've got those there. I may go back and add some clouds, and I can even come over to my blending tool and with the soft blend, and I can kind of circle that to take some of that linear striations out that I had from the airbrush, like so, and just kind of soften, pulling straight down with it. So that's just kind of like going back over an oil painting with like a dry 2-inch brush and just kind of softening it, kind of thing. So we've got that there, and that gives us the clouds and the hint of a cloud and the skyline. It's pretty simple, like I said. And now the next thing we want to do is we're going to put in a mountain range. And so what I like to do for this is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to come over to my selection tool in Rebelle. It's M, gives you the selection options here. I'm going to select my freehand. I'm going to put it on Add To. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of roughly do the shape of what I'm thinking the mountain will look like. Maybe something like that. Now, because I've got it on Add To, I can just click again and come across and let go. And the main reason, all I was really concerned about to begin with was just this top part. Okay, that's all I care about. Excuse me. So now that I've got that there, what I want to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab the oil brush. Okay. I'm going to go with the flat oily. And let's grab this color here. See how that looks. Yep. So we're going to just kind of streak this in. I'm going to go kind of a vertical scrubbing because I want some of this oil texture to be here. Now on one of the things you can do if you want to play around with how much oil texture there is here, you can push F12 on your keyboard and that will give you your visual settings. And one of the things that's here is impasto depth. So if I want to really bring that up, I can just by moving this along. If I want to really take it out, I can go all the way back down if I want a flat painting. But I want it 5 is kind of the default for when you open it up. So I'm going to stick with that. Well, whoops, I bumped it to 6 there, so let's back down to 5. And so all of these are kind of the defaults. Play around with these. These are fun to play around with when you're trying to do these textures and stuff. So, but anyway, I just want to let you know it's there. It's under Window. It's right here, Visual Settings, F12. Okay? So definitely worth messing around with. I have a couple monitors going, so if you see me move something like that off, it's just I'm moving it to open up the space and not have a cluttered space for you. So I'm just going to kind of scrub this in. Now you'll notice here that there are 4 different brushes plus the eraser. The first one is just going to be straight paint. Okay. This one, paint and mix, means that if I put down any other paint, it's going to slightly blend with it as it paints. Okay. Kind of like oil paints if you didn't clean your brush all the way. This one is paint and blend. It's going to do it even more so. Okay, so paint and mix is kind of mixing a new color as it goes along. Paint and blend is kind of taking that color and fading it into another one. And then you have the blend brush here, which is great for if you're just wanting to softly blend stuff together. And then, of course, the eraser. Okay, so let's just kind of scrub this in some more. And you can see I'm just going up and down and moving across. I'm not really too worried about it right now. Okay. So that's kind of my mountain range, if you will. All right, so I've got that in there. Now I want to block in some other colors, okay, and kind of get a feel for where everything is. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect, Control D, and Just kind of make sure that I don't have any gaps. And we'll bring this down a little bit, because since this is on a layer by itself, I can come back and erase it if I need to. But the main thing I was doing at first was just getting this profile up here. Okay, so let's go to a little bit lighter color. And let's bring the brackets key down, and so we can kind of mess with it. Now we just want to block in some color for where the sun might be hitting. I'm going to push this lock transparency here, so that way I can draw and paint on this, but it doesn't go outside it, so I can keep my profile. Okay, Control Z, undo that. So I've got that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch to this 3. 3, the difference with it mainly is that it reacts a lot more to pressure. So the harder I push, the more paint it puts down. The lighter I push, the more it blends. Okay. And right now I'm just trying to think of how I want to play the sunlight across this, you know. And 3 is a little finicky, and it takes a little practice, but if you are having frustration with it, just push 4 and kind of blend it. Okay. Makes your life easier. An idea of maybe where some of the sun's, because I'm thinking the sun's going to be streaking in from the right for this. And, well, kind of really coming from not so much the right, but kind of like from here kind of thing. So it's kind of that kind of, anyway. So there's going to be shadow and stuff down here. Back to 3. And these are really kind of more catching some of that golden ray color of like the sun, but also just lighter spots on the mountain itself. Okay, just really light and loose to kind of get an idea of where I want stuff. And then push a little harder. 4 to blend it and, you know, make it a little less obvious, I guess, or less intrusive. Okay. So that's going to give me some. Now I have gotten to where I paint more impressionistic. Okay, so I'm not going to go for a super realistic mountain. You definitely can if you want to, and you can use some of these techniques and just keep kind of going to next steps and next steps to refine it even more. But my goal here isn't to make a photorealistic mountain range stuff. Now I'm going to come together more than what you see here, obviously, but you know, I just want to let you know that I don't like painting photorealistic. So anyway, all right, so that kind of gives us an idea of where some of the light spots and mountain spots and things kind of are. It gives us a good place to start. And now I want to put in some of the shadow. So let's go with kind of this bluish color here. And I'm thinking maybe something along the lines of coming across like so to add some drama to this. Again, all I'm kind of worried about is just this shadow, because I'm thinking, you know, maybe like there's another mountain range or something over here, or something that's kind of sun. Again, the sun's kind of coming up and coming across this valley, so there's a really cool shadow kind of coming across. So I'm just going to blend this around, back in a little here and there if it gets too thinned out. So I'm just switching 3 and 4 on my keyboard is all I'm doing. So that way I can kind of blend more here and there. And I control the paint. Oh, I'm going to turn on pure pigment on the, not pure pigment, but the color pigment here. That is one of the interesting things with Rebelle that you won't find in other software, is that it has a true pigment blend where the pigments behave very realistic. Otherwise, if you have it off, like I did because I forgot to turn it on, if you have it off, you're blending RGB and you can get some muddy grays and stuff like that pretty quick. If you leave it on, it blends much closer to what an actual oil paint would stuff. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind. I like to leave it on when I can because I find that I get cleaner prints that look better for color. Okay, and you can see I'm not being really picky with this. I'm just making sure that it's dark. Okay. And this will all kind of come together as we go through this. So don't worry about it too much. Just, this is the point where you want to trust yourself and just relax. Just paint, you know, don't over stress about it. Give yourself the permission to play. All right, now I'm going to go back along this top and just kind of soften it ever so slightly. I'm just using the least amount of pressure here and slightly wiggling the brush and stuff. So now that I've got that in there, it gives me some interest for where a shadow could be coming across. Now I want to grab to this one, but I'm going to go just slightly darker at 2 so I can blend this in a little easier. And I'm going to bring my bracket down. I want to put some like valleys and stuff in here and kind of have this pull down into here because it's going to give us, it's going to tie stuff together basically is what I'm saying. But this is going to start giving us some idea of where shadows could be, pushing some things back here and there. I don't want a whole lot of those. Now that I've got some of them laid in there, I'm going to push 4. I'm going to soften it back. And then kind of blend a little bit there. All right, so that starts to kind of bring things a little bit more together. Again, not the finished painting. This is just the underpainting. All right, so we've got some of that there. Now I know for this, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to go a little bit lighter on that. I'm going to add in some spots here and there that may be lighter. This to come there, and then back to 4. Some of this over here. Something along the lines of that. The lock transparency. And I'm just going to bring this up a little bit. And just kind of soften some of this. If you ever watch Bob Ross, he would take his brush and just kind of blend this and kind of shape it down for the sell it a little bit. I'm using just the lightest of pressure that I can. Okay. Something like that. Okay, so a couple things that we can see here. We've got some of the darks going in, we've got some of the lights going in. We've got this shadow coming across. Because we have some of these colors coming down in here, it kind of starts tying it together for what you can see here. All right, and starts pulling some of that in to be there. So we've got that layer. So let's go, and we're going to come back and add more stuff to this. This is just kind of laying the groundwork for our composition, checking to see how we like it, and so forth. There are some people who will work, like, for example, they'll work on this and get this completely finished, and then come down and do the next part, and then come down and do the next part. You can do that, but you got to be really careful that you're not overworking something and kind of using up all your energy on that, and then you come down to this next part, you're like, and then you do that part. So I want to kind of show you how to keep moving around the painting so that you're tying stuff together as you're doing it. And then you can start making decisions from there to tighten it in. Like doing this right here, I'm noticing, okay, I've got this really blank blue area up here. Well, that means I want to go back and add clouds. Okay, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that before. Now I do. Okay. I'm also thinking maybe I want to bring this up a little bit because I want to have more foreground here. So the nice thing about doing it digital is I can press Control T and then Shift up arrow. And now I can move this more here. And that's going to leave me more composition room down here to play around with. Okay. So things to think about, to do. So I want to show you that so that way you can know that, hey, play around with the composition and stuff first by doing some rough underpainting before you start getting really focused in. So new layer. I'm going to name these layers real quick. So this is going to be sky. This will probably be mid-ground. Okay. All right, so for mid-ground, I know I want to put in some trees going across. Okay. So I can stick with this brush. I can also, there's several others like some of these knife ones that are down here. And some of these rakes and that kind of stuff. And dabbers. These are all the ones that come with Rebelle 5 Pro. I don't think I have any of the other ones here. Any of the other ones that I do have, because I've not really made any custom brushes that I've liked and kept. I think there's maybe one here that I have. And that actually may be in this other one. Anyway, these are all ones that you can download for free from Rebelle. So there's nothing crazy here. Okay, so I've got the filbert brush. And with the filbert, let's go to, I think that'll work. Control Z. I'm going to bring this way down. Because what I want to do is start putting in some trees. And in order to do that, I just want to start off first by doing kind of this vertical up and down motion. This is going to be very random. Just up and down. And I'm on the separate mid-ground layer. Again, this is the underpainting. And the reason I'm doing this is that, and I'm trying, you can see I go up, and here, one of the things you got to avoid when you're doing this is don't get into the rhythm, because you'll start going rhythm, 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 doop, rhythm, 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 doop, and it look like you have a heartbeat there. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, so that's going to work to just, again, kind of roughly lay it in, and then I'll come back and just kind of smudge in some of this area here. Like so. Just kind of swirl it because I did leave a little bit of a line there from the paint, so I'm just going to kind of smudge it in a little bit. All right, so there we go. So now we've got some of that. Now I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to grab a little bit of this reddish brown color, and I'm going to come along through here, and I'm just going to kind of tap in some here and there. And this is just literally me just shaking my hand and letting the pen hit as I come across. Okay, so I want to do that, and that way I've kind of got that laid in there. And then for part down here, I want to have a little bit more green coming across. So I'm just going to kind of come in like so. And that's going to kind of lay in some of the areas where the grasses and stuff will start being. Now I'm going to take 4 over here, blend, and I'm going to just kind of smush some of this together. Like so. Again, I don't want a lot of detail here. to try and keep from having any repeating patterns. Bodies and brains like pattern. Excuse me. Now that kind of lays in some of the area that will be the far distant background. I'm just going to kind of smudge this across. And again, we're going to come back and refine this, so trust the process. All right, now one of the things I want to do, and I think I can go ahead and do it here, is I want to have a kind of meandering water that's going to bring us into the painting, okay? And I'm going to grab, now part of the reason I was doing all this here is that it gives me these different colors I can now mess around with. So I'm going to grab this color, and this is just kind of a random green that's in there. And let's just kind of sketch in where we want this kind of water to be. So something that, now I'm making this a little bit wider than what I'm expecting the final bit to be, because as I paint it's going to contract this in. So if I start small, I'll end up just having like a sliver of stuff going through here. Okay. This, I'll erase some of that. Don't need an eraser that big. So I pushed E for eraser, then you can hit B and it'll take you back to the brush that you had. Okay. So that's going to give me a good idea of where I want. I'll probably have some random grass through here. Smudge this in real quick. Now that 3, one of the interesting things about 3, this is a quick aside. So I've got 3 pushed here for this paint and blend. If I'm painting with this and I use really light pressure as I go through, it's almost like using turpentine to smear it around. So just an FYI. It could be a good way to kind of blend it and get some smudgy looks to it. Alright, so I'm going to bring that size up a little bit. I'm going to grab this green again. And I'm just going to, go back to 2, and I'm going to smudge in this. And we're going to bring some of this down too. And 4 to kind of put it together, take a little bit more vertical strokes. And I'm just kind of smearing the paint around because I want some of these different naturally occurring kind of transitions of color kind of in here. Gives more interest to the final piece. Back to 3. Like that. Now then, what I like to do sometimes is come back with the selection tool and kind of refine my... So I want this to be basically horizontal. Have to be exact. But by being basically horizontal, it gives the feel that it's really kind of like so. So it'll give you that feel. So now we've got that. So it gives us that part for there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now real quick is I'm going to save this, and so that way I don't lose anything, and then I'll be right back.